March 20th, 1988, Sunday morning. I'm taking a break for studying about the ear. Probably the only thing really interesting to report is last Friday night I went to a party at Dr. Tice's house. Tice is my hearing teacher. Before I went, I picked up Chris Adams in Davis. We had a good time together, and she really looked pretty in her dress. Really curvy and voluptuous. The males at the party also liked looking at her. Anyway, when I picked her up, I was then supposed to pick up this black girl named Shahira, who is a fellow classmate of mine. Shahira said she didn't have any transportation. Anyway, she talked me into picking her up, so after I picked up Chris in Davis, I went to look for Shahira, but I got lost. I ended up off course. It was a good thing that I had her phone number, because that made it so I could find out where she really lived. Apparently the directions I got from her weren't as clear as they could have been, and if I didn't call and didn't get lost, I would have found her, because she gave me the number of her apartment instead of the number of the street. Anyway, when I finally got to pick her up, I discovered that she did have transportation, because her cousin drove her to meet me at a Lucky store. Shahira then angrily got into her car with her niece and tried unsuccessfully to... Shahira then got into my car with her niece and tried unsuccessfully to keep from showing her anger. How angry she was that I was 40 minutes late. I was 40 minutes late. I didn't realize she was in South Sacramento. Anyway, Chris and I had a good time at the party. I met Tice's strange, loud rock music loving daughter, who tried to talk me into audiology, because that's where the money is. I also met the black girl, Lisa, who looked really cute and pretty to me. I also met the only other male in speech pathology who is going to be an audiologist. So far I'm the only speech pathologist. Anyway, I entertained Tice and the others with impersonations and jokes, telling them that I'm confused about Honduras and Nicaragua, because the information I get from them is so contradictory. The Contras, Nicaragua, and all that. Anyway, Shahira wanted to leave because the food was cold and almost gone, so we and Chris left the party. As I drove her home, Shahira made me feel stupid by saying how stupid I was with directions, etc. She was joking, of course, saying jokes that I think would be allowed on the Newlywed Game, but I didn't think they were funny, because she was angry when she told these jokes. 15 miles later, I was happy to let it out. I mean her out. 15 minutes later, I was happy to let it, her off. Chris and I then had a good time laughing about the gall of this black girl. Anyway, I kept on telling Shahira how sorry I was for being late, but when she showed her true colors, I then felt good that I was late. Maybe next time her cousin will provide her some transportation, like he could have done. Anyway, after I let her off, I took Chris to Old Sacramento. I told her about how I bombed at Last Unlimited, and we talked about God, and then we went to a sleazy joke shop. P.S. It is now Tuesday afternoon, March 22nd, 1988. I then took Chris home. Anyway, last night before my hearing test, my teacher, Dr. Tice, told the class that I had bought a real treat to the party. I said, "You mean the cake?" "No," he said, "Chris." I then said, "Oh, yeah, I bought cake and cheesecake." The girls in my class looked at me like I was a chauvinist. Anyway, Chris was really pretty. She filled out her dress perfectly, and all the guys at the party were interested in her. I hope Dr. Tice doesn't mark my grade down out of jealousy, being that I was with such a pretty girl. I did pretty well his test. But if he's envious, thinking Chris is my girlfriend, maybe he'll be hard on me. Oh well, I can't think of anything else to report. Pretty soon I'm going to go to Sac State to see about becoming a learning handicap teacher. Speech pathology looked really boring to me yesterday. Doug McClure came up last weekend. He told me that he didn't know if he was ready for fatherhood, and that he didn't plan to have his wife pregnant, especially when he's poor now. I told him that's how it always is. Kids always seem to come when you don't want them, but according to Grandma, you are able to survive somehow. I saw a thing on channel 6. Just a second here. Oh well, who cares? Okay. I saw a thing on channel 6 last Saturday that showed a sperm uniting with an egg, then developing into a baby. I saw it a long time ago, but although I thought it was well done, the thing that was interesting about it is that there was a time it used to gross me out so much, but it doesn't anymore. That's the thing that's interesting. I'll never forget the time. I'll never forget the time. That I was taking health science at Sac City College from a teacher named Mrs. Crowley, who looked almost exactly like Jerry Lewis in The Nutty Professor. Even dressed like Lewis in the movie. Anyway, Mrs. Crowley was narrating slides of adult development. Alright, I shall continue here with this, whatchamacallit. I'm almost running out of tape here, so. I'll never forget the time that I was taking health science at Sac City College. Yeah, I told you about that. Anyway, Mrs. Crowley was narrating slides of a developing fetus, and man, I couldn't believe it. I literally almost passed out. I was so grossed out. As she talked about embryonic fluid and the two lobes of the developing fetal brain and the transparent skin to see its liver, etc., I could feel my blood circulating through my body, through my veins and stuff. I started picturing myself as a fetus, and wow, I couldn't believe the effect Mrs. Crowley was having on me. I got so grossed out that I couldn't even write. My pen would flop around in my hand, and I had to bend over to keep from passing out. I ended up sitting way down in my chair with my stomach getting incredibly nauseous. What made it worse was that I was getting scared from the way my body was acting, and it made it so I could hear the blood traveling through my jugular veins, giving me the feeling of being give me a feeling of being a big veiny fetus. Anyway, Channel 6's presentation was a lot better. I hardly got grossed out at all, and instead of looking at it from a science view, which grossed me out, I looked at it from a spiritual view, which really made me happy to realize that God could exist, because, gross out or not, it's really a miracle how our bodies get from a sperm to an egg, then to a 20-year-old. The miracle seems to end at full growth. When it starts aging, it doesn't seem miraculous to me. That's when the miracle ends, I think. Aging or not, it's still a miracle. Anyway, I think God is curing me of my sin of vanity. I've noticed a lot that my hair is getting thinner, yet I really don't seem to have the urge to blow my brains out over going bald anymore. I have been praying to God to let me love him more than anything in the entire universe, which includes my head hair, and that seems to be working. What really seemed to take the hatred out of going bald away from me was when Jan, Kevin's ex-girlfriend, told me that she found baldness sexy. Saying that gave me a glimmer of hope because she's the only girl I have ever met that said that. I still get depressed though, because although I still have my hair, girls at Sac State look through me like I don't even exist, making me think, well, how are they going to act when I'm really going bald? If I were an atheist, I'd really be depressed. Over and out, Bruce Ramsey. March 25th, 1988, Friday night. Paul Jacobs came up last Wednesday afternoon and left this morning. Paul has made me really good at speed chess by using a clock. Actually, it's called time chess, I think. Anyway, he used to beat me a lot when I first started playing time chess with him. Now it's the other way around, or it could be because he might have been hungover. I don't know. Anyway, Kevin made a nervous wreck out of Grandma Wednesday night, actually Thursday morning, when he was late coming home. He and Paul went to Roxanne's, got drunk, and probably would have stayed clear to the next morning, but when Grandma went back to sleep, I got out of bed and ran to Roxanne's, where I drove Kevin home in his car. Kevin wanted to drive, but I realized that he was in no condition for that because he kept on asking me boring questions that I knew he wouldn't bother asking if he were sober. Anyway, it's really amazing how a pretty girl like Roxanne can control a male. She did look pretty when I saw her drive. When I saw her to drive before I drove Kevin back, but I wasn't going to stay at all at her place, realizing that Grandma was falling apart from worry back home. It was 4:30 in the morning when I got out of bed and ran to Roxanne's. Grandma woke me up at 3 in the morning, worried and angry, telling me that Kevin wasn't back. Grandma gets incredibly ill, literally, over one of us not coming home early. Believe it or not, I don't think she realizes that Kevin was at Roxanne's that night. Kevin doesn't tell her that she sees her sometime, because back in 1980, Grandma became ill from worry because Roxanne would hold Kevin hostage at her place. Anyway, last Wednesday night, before all this, I went to an anti-Zion presentation at CSUS. I went there to stick up for Israel. But after they showed the coverage of the Jews kicking Palestinians out of Israel and tearing and bulldozing their houses down, I kind of lost the will to defend Israel. If what I heard and witnessed was true, then I hate to say it, but Israel seems to deserve what it's happening to it now. That's if it did that. What I can't understand is if the Jews did kill the Palestinian refugees like the Palestinians said, how come nothing was reported until now? Continued on another tape called Last Journal Bruce Ramsey Conclusion. It'll be part 3. And the tape will run out right now. It should.